In Ukraine, the war is about to happen. In the recent days, Russia has sent more than 10,000 military troops to its western borders with the Ukraine. In response, Ukraine and the rest of the world have declared this move as a war starter. The United States threatened Russia with sanctions and started to supply the Ukrainian army with militant tools. Two questions to be asked. Will Russia invade Ukraine, and why?
Russian invasion of Ukraine.
To answer these questions, we will need to understand this man, Vladimir Putin, a young nationalist who was raised on the faith of the Soviet Union, will be working as an undercover agent for KGB, the secret Russian service, when he'll be asked to resign because of the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991.
Tonight, the Kremlin's red flag was lowered for the last time. People in this country, said Mr. Gorbachev, are ceasing to become citizens of a great power.
This news will be the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century, as Putin describes it. 20 years later, Putin will be the president of Russia when he'll be publishing an article on the official website of the Kremlin titled "On the Historical Unity of Russians and Ukrainians." In this article, Putin suggests that Ukraine and Russia are one entity with common language, values, and characteristics. At the end of the article, Putin said something that caught my attention. He said, "I am confident that true sovereignty of Ukraine is possible only in partnership with Russia, for we are one people." So, is that really true? Are Russians and Ukrainians really one people? Well, I hate to say it, but Putin may have been right. If you take a quick look at the Russian history, you will find that it actually starts from Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine, and afterwards it started to spread to the east, forming the Russia we all know today. Also, if you take a closer look on the Russian demography, you will find that it isn't a big chunk of land, rather a large number of huge districts that are, to some extent, different from each other. For example, in Dagestan, which is also in Russia, people there look more like Khabib, the UFC champ, and less like Putin. Another example is Zakha Republic, where people have archaic features that are different from the ones in Moscow. So, Putin actually had a little bit of truth in that. But why would he go to war? Isn't that exaggeration?
С днем Великой Победы! Ура!
Well, for Putin, it's a matter of national security. See, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the independence of Ukraine, the West tried to flirt with Ukraine. For example, in 2008, the Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, sent an invitation letter to Ukraine and two other eastern states to join the NATO. Moreover, many countries of the ones located on the Russian borders who were members of the Soviet Union formerly joined the NATO after the collapse of the Union, such as Latvia and Estonia. Soon, it was obvious that people in Ukraine started to show more tendency towards Western European countries and the US and started to drop their adherence with the Eastern European countries and especially with Russia. So, if Ukraine became a member at the NATO, then Ukraine will be immune from any Russian invasion, because Russia then will be going to a war against 30 countries. After all, the NATO is a military organization made up of 30 member countries. Not to mention that the ability of the NATO is much stronger than the Russian ones. For example, take a look at this. The Russian budget for military defense is $154 billion, where NATO's budget for military defense is $1.3 trillion. Russia's total army is 1,350,000, whereas NATO's total army is about 6 million. So you kinda get the point of what Putin is saying here. That's why before a meeting which was held in Geneva between most of Western and Eastern countries plus USA, Putin appeared with a set of demands. These demands were no new members to NATO. NATO withdraws from Eastern Europe countries. USA promises not to support any of Eastern Europe countries with nuclear weapons. In case you don't agree, Russia will invade Ukraine.